Elon Musk has roasted the BBC in a one-hour interview days after the organization was given a government-funded tag. The clearly rattled organization attempted to corner Elon Musk, claiming there was a rise in hate speech incidents on Twitter. When Musk asked about specific incidents, the reporter had none.
I've been using Twitter since you've taken it over for the last 6 months.
Okay, so then you must have at some point seen for you hateful content. I'm asking for one example.
Right.
And you can't give a single one.
And I'm saying...
Then I say, sir, that you don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
Yes, because you can't give me a single example of hateful content, not even one tweet. And yet you claimed that the hateful content was high.
Well...
That's false.
No, what I claimed...
You just lied.
What I claimed in the UK, they will say that. So
look, people will say all sorts of nonsense. I'm literally asking for a single example, and you can't name one.
Right, and as I've already said, I don't use that feed. But
then how would you know?
I don't think this is getting anywhere.
You literally said you experienced more hateful content, and then couldn't name a single example.
Right, and as I said,
that's absurd.
I haven't actually looked at that feed.
Then how would you know there's hateful content?
Because I'm saying that's what I saw a few weeks ago. I can't give you an exact example. Let's move on. We only have a certain amount of time.
Does the BBC hold itself at all responsible for misinformation regarding masking and side effects of vaccinations, and not reporting on that at all? And what about the fact that the BBC was put under pressure by the British government to change its editorial policy? Are you aware of that?
This is not an interview about the BBC.
Oh, so... you thought it wasn't?
I see now why you've done Twitter Spaces. I am not a representative of the BBC's editorial policy. I want to make that clear. Let's talk about something else. If you want to talk about the BBC, all right. Let's talk about something else.
Rajalakshmi Joshi, political analyst, is joining us at this point on the broadcast. Rajalakshmi Joshi, clearly the journalist getting called out by Elon Musk for misinformation and for biased propaganda.
A very good morning, Uday. And yes, it was a very amusing interview, and where the interviewer, James Clayton, he was clearly unprepared, and he was definitely not prepared to be interviewed instead. At one point, like you heard, he said this is not an interview about the BBC. But then Elon Musk has so rightly asked him all, very barbed questions about misinformation, about hateful content, about even about journalism. He has asked about freedom of speech. All these issues, he has very rightly called out all the hypocrisy of the BBC. And I am so thrilled to watch that interview. He has very rightly picked out all the right points where Mr. James Clayton, he was blatantly lying. This thing about how they very broadly they just said that there is more hateful content on Twitter, and without even giving any specific examples, it reminded me of certain statements that people keep talking about on international forum about how hate in India has increased after 2014. That I don't know why it reminded me of that. How people have just generalized certain things, especially the BBC. The BBC needed to be called out for creating all these kind of narratives, where they are the ones who actually create narratives. They create misinformation, but they talk as if they are the arbiters. Like Mr. Musk has very rightly asked him, who is the arbiter of misinformation? Is it the BBC? And the interviewer was stumped, and he was dumbfounded. And it was so thrilling to watch how he has roasted the BBC, and he has just simply taken them down. And the BBC thought that they would roast him for calling them a government-funded platform, but instead they found themselves at the receiving end. Uday, it only shows the hypocrisy of the BBC, and the fact that so many people still think that the BBC is a very unbiased and something like they are the absolute epitome of truth, etc., etc. That has been completely destroyed. So it is. I think it only shows how bad journalism BBC is getting into, and how biased, misinformed, and I think that this is a very bad example. So it was very amusing to watch this with them.
Absolutely.